The park buzzed with life on a crisp autumn afternoon. Golden leaves danced in the breeze, creating a vivid tapestry on the ground as children's laughter echoed around. Amid the cheerful chaos, a heart-wrenching sound pierced the air, a child's uncontrollable sobbing. Sitting alone on a weathered wooden bench, clutching a tattered teddy bear, was a little boy no older than 7. His tear-streaked face was a stark contrast to the joy around him, his shoulders shaking with each sob. The surrounding world seemed to fade as his cries filled the air. Nearby, a frail old woman named Margaret noticed him. Her silvery hair framed a face etched with years of kindness and wisdom. She tightened her scarf against the chill, but couldn't ignore the boy's anguish. Despite her aching knees, she made her way over. Margaret's gentle voice broke through the boy's crying. "What's wrong, dear?" she asked softly, her voice as soothing as the autumn breeze. The boy looked up, his big brown eyes brimming with tears. His lower lip quivered as he hiccuped between sobs. "I can't find my mom," he choked out. Margaret's heart ached for him. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll find her together," she reassured him. Little did either of them know, this encounter would change their lives in ways neither could imagine. Margaret had always been a pillar of her community. A retired teacher, she had spent her career shaping young minds and nurturing future generations. Since retiring, she spent her days volunteering at the local library and knitting blankets for the homeless, filling the gaps of her otherwise quiet life. Her husband had passed away many years ago, and her only daughter, Emily, lived halfway across the country. Despite the distance between them, Margaret and Emily kept in touch, but it wasn't quite the same. Margaret longed for the closeness she once had with her family. Though her days were often solitary, Margaret found comfort in small acts of kindness. She often visited the park in the afternoons to watch children play, feeding the ducks by the pond, and enjoying the fleeting moments of joy around her. The park held a special place in her heart. It was where she and her late husband had spent many warm afternoons, bringing their daughter to the same benches, walking paths, and fountains. Those memories were her solace, a reminder of the love that once filled her life. On that crisp autumn afternoon, Margaret had come to the park, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, only to enjoy the fresh air and a moment of peace. But when she saw the little boy, Ethan, crying on the bench, her maternal instincts immediately kicked in. She felt a deep urge to help, to offer comfort, and to ensure he would be reunited with his mother. Ethan, whose name Margaret soon learned, had been visiting the park with his mother, Sarah. In the bustling chaos of the playground, they had gotten separated. Ethan, ever the curious child, had wandered off to see the ducks by the pond, clutching his beloved teddy bear. But now, he found himself alone, frightened, and helpless. Margaret knelt beside Ethan, her joints protesting the movement as she carefully lowered herself to his level. "We'll find your mom," she promised, her voice soft yet firm. "But first, let's get you warmed up." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a scarf, wrapping it snugly around his small shoulders. Ethan sniffled but managed a small nod, feeling comforted by the gesture. As they walked toward the park's main entrance, Margaret did her best to keep Ethan's spirits up. She pointed out the ducks swimming lazily in the pond, their feathers glistening in the sunlight. She even managed to coax a small smile from him when she mimicked the ducks' quacking sounds, making him giggle despite his fear. But as they reached the entrance, the situation began to feel more daunting. The park was crowded, the paths filled with families and friends enjoying the sunny day. There was no sign of Sarah, Ethan's mother, and the growing crowd only seemed to increase the sense of anxiety in Ethan's wide eyes. Margaret approached a park employee, explaining the situation, and they assured her they would make an announcement over the loudspeaker. They began asking passers-by if they had seen a woman frantically searching for a missing child. Minutes stretched into an hour, and Ethan's anxiety continued to grow. His tiny hand clung to Margaret's, his fingers cold in hers. "What if Mommy doesn't find me?" he whispered, his voice trembling with fear. Margaret crouched down in front of him, looking into his eyes. "Your mommy loves you very much, Ethan," she said softly. "She's looking for you right now, just like we're looking for her. Sometimes it takes a little time, but we won't stop until we find her." Her words seemed to comfort him, though she could see the deep worry still lingering in his young eyes. Margaret's own heart weighed heavy with concern. What if Sarah had left the park, thinking Ethan had wandered away? What if they couldn't find her at all? As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, Margaret felt the weight of time pressing down on them. Ethan was growing more restless by the minute, and the once bright and cheerful atmosphere of the park seemed to fade as they stood at the entrance, searching desperately. The park had become a sea of faces, and with each passing second, Margaret's worry deepened. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distance. Margaret's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the frantic movements of a woman running toward them. Her face was pale, her eyes darting around with panic. Margaret felt a rush of hope. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling. "Is that your mommy?" Ethan's face lit up with recognition. "Mommy," he shouted, his voice breaking through the tension in the air. He let go of Margaret's hand and sprinted toward the woman. The woman dropped to her knees, and with a look of pure relief, she enveloped him in a tight embrace. Tears streamed down her face as she held him close. "Oh, Ethan, I was so scared," she cried, her voice shaking. "I thought I'd lost you." Margaret approached them slowly, a smile of relief spreading across her face. The woman looked up, her tear-streaked face filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for taking care of my son." Margaret waved off the thanks with a humble smile. "I'm just glad he's safe. He's a brave little boy." As the woman calmed herself, she explained what had happened. She had turned her back for just a moment to answer a phone call, and when she looked back, Ethan was gone. She had searched every corner of the park, growing more frantic with each passing minute. Margaret's heart went out to her. She knew how easily these things could happen. "I'm just glad I could be here to help," she said, her voice soft. "He's a wonderful child." Before they parted ways, Ethan ran back to Margaret and threw his arms around her. "Thank you, Grandma," he said, his voice muffled against her coat. The word Grandma caught Margaret off guard. She hadn't been called that in years, not since her daughter moved away and started her own family. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged Ethan back. "You're very welcome, sweetheart," she whispered. As Margaret watched Ethan and his mother walk away, hand in hand, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just that she had helped Ethan find his way back to his mother. It was something more, a connection, a reminder that she still had something valuable to offer. She had spent so much time missing her own family, wondering if her life still had purpose. But today, she realized that small acts of kindness could create profound ripples, leaving a lasting impact on others. Just as she was about to leave the park, Ethan's mother, Sarah, turned back and called out to her. "Wait," she said, hurrying toward Margaret. I don't even know your name." "It's Margaret," she replied with a warm smile. "Margaret, would you mind if Ethan and I visited you sometime?" Sarah asked, her voice hesitant but sincere. "You've been so kind, and I think you'd be a wonderful friend to us." Margaret's heart swelled with joy. She had spent so many evenings alone, yearning for connection. "I would like that very much," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Over the weeks that followed, Margaret's life transformed. Ethan and his mother, Sarah, became regular visitors, filling her once quiet home with laughter, warmth, and a renewed sense of purpose. Margaret found herself teaching Ethan how to bake cookies, sharing stories from her past, and rediscovering the joy of having a family to care for. Sarah often remarked on how much Margaret's kindness had impacted their lives. "You didn't just help Ethan that day," she said one evening over tea. "You helped me too. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world, that kindness can make all the difference." Margaret smiled, her heart full. In helping Ethan, she had found a renewed sense of belonging, reminding herself that it was never too late to create meaningful connections and share love with others. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Remember, a small act of kindness can change someone's life in ways you can't imagine. Let's make the world a better place, one story at a time. Join us in spreading hope and compassion by sharing this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.